I've learned so much today.
I do too.
Thanks.
I feel like I know a lot more about if something should happen to me.
Yeah. I feel like I'm an asset to my friend group now if they have insurance questions.
Yes, for sure.
So glad.
Glad
Thank
I
you,
could
Angie.
help. You're welcome.
Very smart.
Thank you for being on today.
Oh,
I
thank you for
appreciate
having
it.
me. This is one of my passions. So,
Yeah. You're listening to the Isn't That Rich podcast, and we're your hosts, Jill Franks
and Ashley McVicker. As young females in the banking industry, we love simplifying the confusing yet everyday questions you have about money.
Like, how do I get my finances in order?
Where is my money really going?
How do I invest for my future?
How do I make my money work for me?
Can I really afford to buy that new home?
These are the questions that keep us up at night. And the truth is, no one was born knowing how to handle their finances.
And chances are, walking into a bank to ask for help seems intimidating.
Whether you're a single person in your early 20s saving for your first home,
Or you're an empty nester wondering what to do with that extra spending cash,
this is the podcast for you. Welcome back to another episode of the Isn't That Rich podcast. Today we are talking all about health insurance and what to do when life happens. So there's no hiding from the fact that we all need health insurance. So whether you're old or rich, married, single, whatever, everybody has to have health insurance. But there are times in our lives when special circumstances may occur and we may find ourselves without health insurance. So today we have a very special guest from our FSB Insurance agency, and she is going to tell us everything about health insurance and when we find ourselves in those predicaments in life when we're missing health insurance and what to do about all that. So I would like to welcome on Miss Angie Cummins.
Welcome,
Hi.
Angie.
thanks, guys.
How are you?
Really excited about this. This is a topic that I feel is very much needed for some people. So
Absolutely.
health insurance is important. So
Yeah.
it's not something that I take lightly with people. I like to be there and help as much as I can in this.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Angie, why don't you tell us a little bit about your history in the insurance industry and just kind of your career path and what brought you to FSB Insurance?
Okay. I worked many years. I was in property and casualty with an insurance company. And I started there about 2014, primarily focusing on property casualty, and we did a little bit of Medicare. And then my career path brought me to the former Williams and Associates, which is now FSB Insurance.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of learning in the health industry. I was dealing with a lot of health issues with a family member. So between that and being on the patient side of the portal and also dealing with just selling it and the questions that came up day to day, it's really given me a passion for the health insurance industry because there are ways to maneuver. There are things I can do to help, and that's what we're always there to help because it's a very, very confusing product.
It really is. Health insurance. I mean, every time I go to the doctor, I always kind of hold my breath like, is this
I know.
gonna
I'm
be
like,
covered?
should I even be in this building right now? Or are they going to
know.
charge me?
I know. Did I call and make sure that this doctor is under the right cover or I'm covered under this doctor? You know, there's so much to it that we don't think about, but you have to. But today we're talking specifically about what to do when life happens. So if there is an occurrence in your life where you may find yourself uninsured, whether you lose your job or you get kicked off your parents' insurance or whatever it might be.
All qualifying events, triggers.
Yes.
So lots of different qualifying events that you could lose your health insurance over.
Correct. And this is a topic that, people, I've lost my job. What do I do? A lot of people usually are covered until because usually insurance is beginning of the month, ending of month cancellation. They don't usually cancel that right in the middle, so you usually have a little bit of time. We have up to 60 days with the Affordable Care Act rules and regulations to be able to get you signed up on something and start running you, but we want to give us enough time that you're not going to have any gaps in there. So as soon as you find out you're losing it, hey, start calling, start shopping that, because something simple, you may be the healthiest person in the world, and during that downtime, something catastrophic could happen that could create a need for that insurance. And then what are you going to do if you have a gap?
Right. So let's talk about that a little bit. So you said there are special occurrences.
Yes.
And so let's go through a couple of those examples. So one would be losing your job. Another one we kind of mentioned would be, you turn 26 and it's time for you to get out of the nest, right? You get kicked out,
Correct.
kicked off your parents. What are some other kind of special occurrences that happen that would trigger something like this?
Say you get married.
Really?
It's a moment of celebration, but you're also learning to grow up. And so in those moments, you have what's created a life change, and that life change creates that trigger that allows us to start quoting you again for that.
Even if you're working somewhere. So if I work here and I have health insurance and then I got married, it still triggers that?
Yes. So that would allow us to possibly trigger of adding your spouse to your group insurance in that instance.
Oh, wow.
So,
That's
yes.
good news. That's because
Definitely.
otherwise they wouldn't until the next year. Is that how it works?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So marriage, death of a
Yes.
spouse?
If you have a spouse, and unfortunately this happens, they're the primary insurance provider. You have the spouse that's all of your insurance is under
Right.
that. Something happens there, and that's going to create a trigger. There are a lot of loopholes on that one. We could put you on an individual policy for yourself or your children. If they were on a group policy, it even triggers a COBRA special enrollment. So that's definitely a great one to talk about as far as the passing of a loved one. The other one is, on a more happy note, a birth. Or even adoption of a child. So that triggers the ability to give you a special enrollment ability on that. So not necessarily bad things. It can be a good addition to your family. So the marriage and the birth.
And I was always surprised for that. So my sister had twins. And I remember when that was always like a shock. She's like, oh yeah, we have to get our insurance ready for when the kids are born because they count in their hospital stay, and they were preemies. So they use their health insurance quite a bit for a month, while they're in the hospital. So you don't think when you're having a baby, oh yeah, I have to prepare for the child that's going to be born. They're their own independent. They need health insurance as well.
And it doesn't fall under the mother.
No.
Right.
Once they're
What
born,
in
they're
the
their
world? I swear.
But you don't
Yes.
think of that. So how does that work when somebody is born? Like, do they have to apply before? Do they have to apply afterwards?
When you're
How does
saying,
that
I'm sorry, I'm
work?
just laughing because you're saying like they apply. It's like this baby in a womb. Like,
But how does that work? Like, I guess I don't
Well-
know when you do have a birth in the family.
A lot of times what I will do when a little one is there, I will start the change in the system so it kind of marks it and earmarks it for a date. But I can't complete anything till we get that Social Security number because that is what they're going to use to bill you with. That's what the medical industry is going to find you with. That's what they're going to. So that's important. I do have to have a social to complete that, but you have up to the 30-day mark or plus to be able to get that to me. So
Okay, because there's a lot that goes on in the hospital. You get your Social Security number, you get your little fingerprinted and all that stuff. There's a lot that
8 million
happens.
photos taken of you.
yes.
I just had a niece born, so that's why I know.
Oh,
this.
I had a great nephew, so I understand. They're great.
Yeah, they
I love
sure
them.
are. Oh,
Wow, so you don't want to be a baby and be uninsured, is what you're telling me. And Jill,
No.
you told me how much would have been the hospital stay you said when she had twins?
I don't
It was
remember exactly, but it
astronomical.
was almost $1 million, like with the two boys for a month and both of them in the NICU. Like it was a huge amount of money.
right.
So
It would have been a financial devastation to their family
Yeah.
if they didn't have the insurance. So yes,
absolutely, they would have. Yeah, it would have been terrible. So
I agree.
crazy.
So you keep mentioning this word or this phrase. You say special enrollment. Is that just something you're saying when someone applies for health insurance, or does that actually mean something special enrollment?
When the Affordable Care Act came out, it has set special limitations to a time frame, and they call that open enrollment.
Okay.
Usually that takes place in November, and that will run till the middle of January, but usually middle of December to get you in place by January 1st, because now insurance is running calendar year from January to December for individual health plans.
Okay.
So anybody who signs up for any health insurance, especially right now, say you're triggering a special enrollment. This is something that I also like to mention to people. The special enrollment is basically triggering an event that allows you to sign up outside of that normal open enrollment period. So it creates that loophole, if you will, that gets you insurance during a time that normally you would not be qualified for.
And you said that started in what month? November?
November 1st usually is when our open enrollment period will kick in. So, and that will kick in. But, however, anybody that comes in November or December, those products or those enrollments are not technically active until the following January 1st.
Okay.
So, if you're signing up during that special enrollment, you're not active until then.
Okay, so you actually don't get coverage until January 1st.
Correct.
Okay.
But are you paying for it?
No, not until January 1st. Other than you may pay your initial premium, so you're not waiting, and they can go ahead and get your cards and everything out to you. Sometimes that will happen with people.
So you're telling me if I got in this special enrollment from November and December in those months, and I broke my leg, am I paying the full bill?
If you were not now, if you had a special enrollment, that's another story. But if you're under open enrollment, then yes, you could be if you didn't have insurance in place at that time.
So if I broke my leg in September, I'm trying to figure it out, man.
Okay, so say you lost your job and you came to me within 30 days. I could find you health insurance. I could go out on the different companies that we carry, and we could find something for you that would fit your needs and discuss your options.
Okay.
Say something happened and you waited beyond your period, and you come to me at day 61 and you're like, oh, I broke my leg today and I need insurance right now. There's nothing I can do, because the Individual Affordable Care Act will tie our hands on that. Other than there's catastrophic insurance, but that's a whole other category that it's for temporary instances. But
Wow.
yes.
Yeah, so open enrollment's a big deal. You don't want to miss that. So when you're getting all those emails from your company saying open enrollment period is starting, don't sleep on it. Correct. Make sure you're acting on that and getting it.
Correct.
And now, so there's a difference between individual health insurance and group health insurance like we get from our company at the bank, or wherever you work. So what's the big difference between that? Because, if I get fired and I'm looking for my own, it's a different kind of product that I'm looking for. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you're looking, this is, of course, there is COBRA out there, but we're going to discuss the individual side of it.
Okay.
Individual insurance is basically coming directly from your pocket.
Okay.
100%. There are a lot of different ways we can do this. There's 100% pay, where you cover everything. But a lot of people, I like to run them through a database with the Affordable Care Act. And the database, we have one we use, and it allows us to utilize your household income to be able to see if you qualify for a government subsidy, which essentially means the government is aware that health insurance is costly and some people may not be able to afford it. So they review your household income, and they'll look at that and say, hey, we agree that we need to take up some of the slack here and we'll pay for some of your insurance. That being said, you therefore have to verify and qualify your income. And when I say income, I stress it's household income. So whatever you're going to claim at taxes for your entire household, that is what you need to be reporting on this, because if you misreport, they're going to come back during tax time when they evaluate your taxes, and you may be penalized.
You're going to probably be paying back all of that credit you might have gotten.
Correct.
Gosh. Okay, that makes sense. So think of a individual plan as you're paying 100% out of pocket, hopefully getting some subsidies with that Affordable Care Act.
Yes.
Okay. And then you mentioned COBRA a lot. And from my experience with COBRA is something like you can stay on your past employers if you pay for it. Is that correct? Is that what COBRA
Yes.
is? Okay. Can you maybe tell me a little bit more about COBRA? Do you know?
Yeah, I'm over here like my eyes
Yeah.
are crossed.
Yes.
Yeah.
COBRA basically is a short period of time that you're allowed to stay on your group employer's insurance. However, unless there is something special written into some agreement with your employer, you're going to lose whatever contribution your employer was previously giving you.
Okay, so say if Farmers was paying 50% or something like that, and I get fired and now they won't pay that 50%.
You are correct.
Okay, so I'm in charge of all of it.
You are correct, yes.
Okay.
And
They have different time limits from when you can stay on their insurance. Like, will it be 30 days after? This is my question, I guess, would be a better example for this podcast. Let's say I lost my job here, and then I'm 30 days in between, and I'm going to the next bank to get on insurance. Do I need to get on a temporary insurance plan for that month? Is that a possibility? Or will Farmers, and I know you can't probably answer that, will they cover me for that month until
you potentially could utilize the COBRA in that instance, and that's a good use of COBRA.
Okay.
COBRA is a temporary gap between insurance is where that's going to that's the best way for me to, in my opinion, to explain that is.
Makes sense. It does.
It just covers that temporary time period between your jobs.
Okay.
And even in the instance, say, you leave your job and your insurance doesn't technically begin in the new job and it's even at your own, it doesn't matter if it's something that you lost your job willingly or unwillingly, you do have that option. So, and
Now, can that previous company that I work for refuse to offer me COBRA? Is that a possibility?
no, but not everybody will qualify for COBRA.
Okay.
So, I believe COBRA is mandatory.
Okay.
I will admit I usually have to refer to my COBRA expert whenever I get into those.
Yeah. Just depending on, there's a lot.
You are correct.
Case by case is what insurance
I
is.
never
So-
like to say 100% because there is always that one
exception.
instance.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I guess the advantage to really staying on COBRA is probably you can keep your same doctors
Yes.
that you had, and you can probably stay with the same,
Right. And if you're in the middle of care, you're not going to have to start, trying to make sure they're still in network or anything like that.
because that is a big deal. Like if you are, say you were, I don't know, going through something and all of a sudden you have to switch providers and
Yes.
and then you have to start from square one, that's a lot.
Yes.
It's a lot. It's a headache. So
Now, and
that's good news.
a lot of people don't realize, even with group plans, deductibles are annual. They're calendar year is what they call them. And that means that doesn't matter if you do change jobs, a lot of times your deductible is supposed to go with you. So anything that you've had,
Oh, that's good to know.
you should be able to pull in any deductibles a lot of times.
That's good. I learned about the deductible thing this year with my family. Like, just my parents are self-employed, so they have a higher deductible that they had to hit with their insurance. It was so funny. We were like, who can get sick next so we can meet this deductible? so our insurance will actually pay for it. I
So
swear.
then they can have a big surgery done or something.
my dad was supposed to have surgery, and he ended up getting COVID like 2 weeks before. It was December, you guys. And so it was the funniest thing. We're all out, I'm like, our deductible's not met, Dad. Like, this is all your fault.
Oh, no.
So it was like this big insurance joke. So I know all about deductibles.
So then at the end of the year, it starts over.
That's the one thing that makes sense to me.
Yes. So
Like, no, it's January 1.
you're too close to the end.
Yes. Oh. So besides COBRA and getting an individual plan, is there any kind of like short-term policy people can get? Or is that something we mess with at FSB Insurance? Or what does that look like?
There is catastrophic insurance,
Okay.
and I have to admit, I personally have not sold that because usually people who are coming to me are falling within that special enrollment, or it's just one where they have not been able to get it because the catastrophic insurance is it's very limited on how many days you're able to carry that.
Okay.
And I'm going to admit that I'm not.
An expert in that
Yes.
field, but that's okay.
I have a question. Have you ever seen somebody like get kicked off their insurance or lose their job and then something happened to them and they were uninsured all the time?
Happened to me.
Did it really?
It did. I was going through a layoff. I worked with a cellular company, and they did a layoff of our stores. And my son at the time was 2 years old and choked on a gummy bear.
You're kidding me.
No, ambulance call, everything. He went in, he turned blue on us, and it was pretty traumatic. So I had an ambulance visit. I had a...
Oh, and those are expensive.
Yes,
Yeah.
ER case, and then I had to follow up because during the event he had a seizure, so then we had to do seizure monitoring to make sure that he wasn't going to be... It didn't trigger something. So
Wow.
he ended up being perfectly fine.
Good.
Just
Thank
scared
God.
Mom to death and
Right.
cut gummy bears out until he was like 20. But
No more gummy bears. Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, so I lived that and had to hurry up and scramble. And luckily I was able to, at the time, because of the layoff, I personally qualified for Medicaid for him. So, and
that's
that. I think at the time it wasn't called CHIP, but I think it's more commonly known as CHIP. These days. So that's the Children's Health Insurance Plan, because they do try to make sure that our children get the coverage they need. So.
Okay, so explain that. So you lost your job, and now you have a family. You have a little boy, and so they can't fall under. So explain that.
Tell me.
Tell me more about that. So now you qualify for your short term or your COBRA. What did you do? Which one did you choose?
The COBRA was something that I was young and didn't realize was there for me.
Okay.
So in my lack of knowledge and the ability, in my, I guess you can call ignorance at the time, I didn't know that was something that I could take or use. But I just, and the doctors, my actual doctor at the time was very good at helping to say, hey, she was my advocate to saying, this is what you probably want to do. Let us help you out, because she knew that, this was, I was pretty devastated and not sure. And I was trying to work out a payment plan, and they were like, let's talk about what we can do. So
that's good.
There, that I have had some wonderful people that have helped me educate me. So that's why I kind of like to educate others.
Absolutely. That's so important. So if you are, say you are one of these people that lose their job, what is the first step that they would take to kind of get themselves covered and protected?
Give us a call.
Okay.
Give me a call immediately, and I can start, we can start gathering the information to at least get a quote in place. They're going to want to ask, of course, their employer. The first thing they're going to ask, number one, when is the first day that I'm going to be without coverage? That's
what I wanted to know, because I thought if I get kicked out of work and I break my leg in the parking lot, are they like not covering me?
Or like this moment your desk is cleaned out. Is
I'm probably
that
going
where...
to break my leg today. Like, that's all I'm talking about.
Ashley. Knock on wood. You never know around here. No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry, I interrupted you. Keep going.
So they're going to check and see when the last day of coverage is, and then they're going to call you or an insurance agent.
preferably before that coverage is lost.
Okay.
Because we don't want to have that gap. You keep, like if you have that moment where you don't have that insurance between. Now, a lot of times I can still go back, even if it happens. What it is anytime we submit an application, it's not 100% written, so it has to go to underwriting. That could take up to 2 weeks is what I like to tell people.
Okay.
So I like to have that little bit of extra time in there so you can make sure that whenever your insurance is dropping, you've got a card in hand picking it up, so you don't have to worry about those gaps in between for those emergency moments in life.
Because that's when things happen.
Yes,
Yeah.
indeed.
It always just works that way.
Wear your bubble wrap and stay inside if you're unemployed.
Okay, and so
Don't eat gummy bears.
Do not eat gummy bears.
So after this 2-week period happens, the plan's being underwritten, and then they get their cards. And what do they need to do? Do they need to find new providers, everything else? Because their old insurance probably isn't going to line up with the same insurance, correct? So they'll have to do their own research. And
Well, that's what I'm there for.
Okay.
So when they come and see me, I'm going to run some plans. I'm going to invite them to come and sit down with me. I am going to probably get usually anywhere between 7 to 10 plans available on the database that I use that's going to allow me to look at it. And we're going to, I can check scripts that they currently have and say, hey, this looks like that's going to be on this tier. I can check doctors that they have and see if they're within the network. So we can try to find the network or the provider or the insurance that works for them, that's going to cover them the best and leave them with make their life as normal as possible, so they're not having any loss in coverage.
That's good to know, because I just think health insurance is health insurance.
I do
Sometimes
too.
you don't really realize that there are different tiers that will help you.
Or that will cover different doctors, like you said earlier,
Yeah.
different medicines, and you can go to store A, but you can't go to store B.
Correct.
Right.
And preferred pharmacies, preferred networks, and the preferreds basically mean these are companies and groups that have made arrangements within the companies that have agreed that we're going to charge this rate for our products, and because we're going to be part of your preferred network, we can make sure and offer these at these rates.
Well, that's good to know. So then you kind of know what price you're going to be paying for those prescriptions.
Yes.
So do you think if I started an insurance company and I made it like everything fell under it, so we pay 100% of everything, every pill, everything, do you think my company would go broke?
Indeed.
Okay.
Yes.
Just making sure. Looking for a side hustle.
I wish I could say that was going to be your winner, but
Yeah, stick to your day job.
But that's a good conversation to
Yeah.
put things in perspective about insurance company and why things cost the way they do, just
Yeah.
because, they're a business too, but
Yes.
they're there to help you.
And-
so you
and
don't
a-
have to pay $1 million for infants in the NICU.
exactly. Yes.
So after you're insured and say I have this, is there a penalty? So say I find another job and I've enrolled in this this plan by myself, and I have a job that could cover my health insurance in a group plan. Is there a penalty for getting off that insurance?
No.
Typically, no.
No.
Okay.
Now, if you do go through what they call the marketplace, a lot of times they will direct you to contact the marketplace to make sure and cancel that policy, as opposed to the direct provider that you're under. That I did run into, and I helped a lady to maneuver through once.
I guess I don't know the difference between.
The marketplace and an individual.
Yeah.
Okay. Marketplace is basically set up under the Affordable Care Act.
Okay.
That is where they run your information. They will run your financials, and they see if you're qualifying for that government subsidy.
Okay.
So basically, the marketplace is the company that manages your government subsidy options or how much you're going to be paying in. So they're the ones who initiate the insurance through the other providers like Blue Cross Blue Shield or Health Alliance, for example. So you can go on there and you'll get quotes from multiple companies, and you choose the one that works best, but you're actually signing up through the marketplace.
Okay, and I have another weird question. What if something happens to me and I have a pre-existing condition? So does that...
Not any longer.
Okay, well, that's good.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I know I like to hear a firm not any longer, because that's important. That's one of the biggest questions, I think, and one of the biggest concerns is if I, have a health condition and I lose my insurance, am I going to be accepted at another plan? You just don't know.
Right.
So that's good to know.
Now, that's not to say that if you lose your coverage, I will say, again, there is going to be a loophole for everything. If you lost your coverage under a previous provider and say you're going through chemo, or you're going through heart issues, or you have serious health conditions, that you may not have to go through some pre-approvals again for some medications. I know, and any diabetic out there is probably experiencing this right now with the recent usage of the weight loss.
That Ozempic?
Ozempic,
Yes.
Mounjaro, all that.
Yes, they're utilizing that and using that for weight loss these days, which are creating some hoops to jump through for our diabetics, because they're having to prove they truly qualify for those shots.
Right, because everybody's getting this medicine covered when
Yes.
they don't really...
Need it.
Yeah,
Correct.
I bet that is creating kind of a
Indeed.
fiasco in the insurance world, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. Well, pre-existing conditions is a hot topic, I know. Yes. I'm glad to answer that. Hot topic.
Yes.
So yes.
A hot topic.
What else do we need to know if we were to be put in a position like this that you would like to share?
The big thing I like for people to know that they don't realize, say you are in a special enrollment and I sign you up today and your service goes into effect September 1st. You're going to think you probably have an annual coverage, but you technically do not. I am only you're locking that rate that you get from me in until December 31st.
Okay, so just for the remainder of this year.
Correct.
Okay, so it won't be September to September.
Correct.
Okay, that makes sense. So
Because insurance, Jill, is January to December.
exactly.
Duh.
Yeah.
For the individual, yes.
For individual.
Duh.
Okay, so that's good to know too.
So, yeah, I always encourage people when they come in, especially late in the year like this and something has happened, hey, just remember, come see me in November. Let's recheck these rates. Let's see where this plan is landing you then. And maybe we review and see if you're still on the best plan.
Okay, so that would feel weird to me going to see my insurance agent twice in 6 months, but
Yes.
that's what you need to do.
Yes.
Good.
Wow, I've learned so much today.
I do too. I
Thanks.
feel like I know a lot more about if something should happen to me.
I feel like I'm an asset to my friend group now if they have insurance questions.
Yes, for sure.
Glad I
you,
could
Angie.
help. You're welcome.
Very smart.
Thank you for being on today.
Oh,
I
thank you for
appreciate it.
having me. This is one of my passions. So,
What's your next best insurance? Oh, what's that called?
Hot tip.
Not hot tip, but like if you weren't going to do health insurance, what would be your next what would be your next insurance?
probably life.
Life.
Yes.
Life insurance.
Love life insurance. I like a comment that was made to me many years ago by a seminar, a gentleman holding a seminar. He said, life insurance is the one insurance you're guaranteed to use. He said, no matter how much, he said, you can pay for your auto insurance, you can pay for your home insurance and never have to make a claim. But with life, you're guaranteed.
That's good.
Thanks for being with us today, Angie.
Yeah,
we
thanks for
appreciate
having
it.
me.
Yep.
I appreciate it.
We'll see you next time.
So, Jill, where do we go from here?
Be sure to check out our show notes for this episode, and also be sure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our newsletter. And we'll see you next week.
See you next week.